What's up, everyone? This past weekend, I was lucky enough to host a virtual retreat for a bunch of my clients. These are all six, seven figure creative entrepreneurs, really, really awesome, dialed in people. And I wanted to take some time this week to share some lessons that I took from the event, that some of the attendees took away from the event. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I've got 10 lessons from the retreat, and let's get into it, shall we? So, a little bit about the event. This past weekend, Friday, Saturday, on August 1st and 2nd, I hosted a virtual retreat for my clients. These are all really, really smart six or seven figure creative entrepreneurs. No one paid less than 12 grand to be in the room. Some paid significantly more. The good news is I'm going to give you all the secrets for free. So, real quick, I'll say this at the top and at the end. If you want to work closely with me, I basically only do consulting now. I do it in a group setting and one on one. There's a link below with more information. So, the theme of the event and what I wanted to share with my clients was about the connection between the internal world and the external. So, basically, how do we create the external changes that we want? More money, more time, more happiness through the internal work that then translates into our business. So I actually spoke myself. I gave a talk over 2 days that was about the 10 principles that I believe serve people the best in life and work. And I also brought in a bunch of speakers. I brought in Stephen Lawson, who's the founder of Monk Manual, who's an incredible, incredible entrepreneur. Jamie Brindle, you've probably seen him if you have spent any time on social media, on Instagram or TikTok or now YouTube. Killer freelancer, agency owner, influencer, smart dude. My good friend Patrick McAndrew, he's an entrepreneur and an inner game expert, and Julian Wagman, who is an inner work guide for entrepreneurs. So let's get into it, shall we? I learned a lot from the event. I'm going to share some recaps from some of the stuff that I talked about and some of the stuff that the speakers talked about as well. So let's get into it, shall we? So the four problems. At this point, I have been working for over a decade with clients, and the last 18 months, I have been working like literally daily with entrepreneurs. And when you do something a lot, you tend to get pretty good at it and you start to see a lot of patterns. And I want to show you in just four problems how to identify and solve literally any problem that you come across in life and business. So, one of the questions that I asked myself when I was working with my clients was like, what are the common themes? Like, what is the question below the question that I keep hearing over and over and over again? And after all this time, I realized that there's basically just like four core problems that people show up to calls with. And the beauty of it is each of them have internal and external components to them. So I'll explain what that means in a second. But if you can understand these four types of problems and see how they're connected and identify where you are and where you're stuck, you can basically do anything that you want to do. Okay. So I'm going to break down each of the four problems. I literally gave my clients an entire hour-long training on this. This is going to be the like 3-minute version of it, but this is a good place to start. So the four problems. The first problem that entrepreneurs have, if you have a problem, one, I don't know what I want. I spend literally, when I taught how to work less, and if you go on and you take the course, this is the most important question. It is literally impossible to do anything if you're not clear on what you want. Imagine if you're like, I want to start running. Well, do you know where you're trying to go? You should probably know so that you can figure out what direction to start going in. This is the foundation of everything. So if you don't have clarity on your destination, you're literally just wandering around. And I can't tell you how many times, I'll get a question from an entrepreneur and it'll be like, hey, here's a bunch of context. Here's what's going on. What do you think? And usually I'm going to ask them, well, it kind of depends on what you want, whether it's a good idea or not. So if you are not clear on what you want, whether that is money, time, fulfillment, like those are the kind of the three core ingredients for life and entrepreneurship, it's going to be really hard to figure out what you want. So before anything else, you should probably get clear on what you want. And what you'll see is if you don't know what you want, I would encourage you to take a second and look at your calendar. and look at, maybe do a time audit for a week. And what you'll realize is that whether you think you have no priorities, when you take action, your priorities are revealed. So if you say, oh, I really want to, I don't know, spend more time with my family. Well, just take a look at your calendar. Are you spending more time with them? No, then it's really not a priority. Are you taking the actions necessary in order to create space? No, then it's probably not a priority. So we need to really get honest about, one, what we want, and two, whether our actions reflect those priorities. And if you're not clear about that, guess what? You're going to be assigned someone else's priorities. You're going to be assigned the priorities of Meta. If you're going to, doom scroll all day long, you'll be assigned the priorities of your clients, who will just rope you into projects. So before anything else, it's really important to get clear on what you want. By the way, I have a whole exercise in How to Work Less called Design Your Life that basically walks you through a series of questions that help you discover this. But we'll also talk more about how to get clear on your wants later on here. One of my speakers, Patrick, talked about it. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so once you're clear on what you want, let's say you have some financial goal or something. The next question that will come about is, well, I don't know what to do. Like, I know what I want, but I don't know what to do. Okay, so once you're clear on what you want, you need to translate that end state into focus and intention. And I would just pick up the book, The One Thing, I'm looking at it on my bookshelf over there, by Gary Keller, and really get yourself clear on this strategy. You can also call it bottleneck analysis. And the question to ask yourself is, what is the one thing that I can do that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? So what's the one thing that is going to move the needle most to get me to what I want? Okay? And once you're clear on that, then the next step is, okay, 3, do you know how to do it? If you know what you're supposed to do, but you don't know how to do it, this is where a lot of people get stuck. They may say, oh, okay, you need to raise your prices or something like that. Or, they want to grow an audience online or something. And they get stuck here, which is, I don't know how to do it. And what I hear constantly is like, yeah, I don't really know how to do that, so I guess that's it. Wrong. The hack here, if you want to solve this problem, is find people who've done what you want to do. It's just that simple. People are much more approachable than you think. I have done this countless times in my life. Anytime there's something that you don't know how to do, the fastest way to do it is to just find someone who's already done it and ask them how they did it. I'll give you one little hack here. I can't go too deep into this. I could literally spend an entire hour on just these 4 problems because it's so foundational, but I'm just going to give you the taste here. I will tell you one way to do it. Find someone who has what you want, okay? Look them up online. Maybe they're an expert. Maybe they have some, I don't know, like website or social media or something. All you got to do, send them a message in a respectful way and say, hey, XYZ person, I'm really impressed by what you do, and I really value your time. It would be amazing if I could just pick your brain for an hour, but I know that your time is valuable. I would love to pay you for it. Just let me know whatever you charge for an hour to just talk with you, and you can literally just talk to people. And I have done this with business. Okay, I have done this if you go back in my lore, for a while I was a pro gamer. Okay, when I ascended from being an amateur to a pro, the fastest way to grow is to find the best players in the world and just talk to them. Okay, so if you don't know how to do something, talk to people until you do. Okay, and if the first person you talk to rejects you, that's fine. You may need to do this 5 or 10 times before you get someone to talk to you. But most people are never really being approached in this way, in a respectful way that actually values their time. I get messages all the time from people that want my energy and attention for free. So if you can provide something, some form of value, it goes a long way. Okay, cool. Number 4. Well, once you know how to do it, the last problem, and this tends to be really quite an internal challenge, is, it's not working. I know what I want. I know what I need to do. I know how to do it, but Rich, it's not working. Okay? And when you hit this wall, this is the final piece of the puzzle. And you can identify at any point in your journey where you are on here and see the connection between these 4 problems and basically diagnose exactly what you need to do with no external help at all. Okay, but when you hit this wall, it's usually one of these 4 core issues, and it's really only 3. It's rare that it's the last one. Okay, number 1, you're not actually doing the thing, right? This is what I would describe as when you know you're supposed to be doing something, but you're not doing it. Okay. Yeah, I know I need to like reach out to more clients. Yeah, I know I need to be putting myself out there more. Yeah, I know I need to raise my prices, right? You actually have all this stuff, 1, 2, 3, but it's not working because you're not doing it. And this tends to be an internal issue, which we're going to talk a lot about later on here. Okay. Second thing is you're not doing enough of it. It is a volume issue. There are plenty of people that entrepreneur, influencer people talking about that it is a volume issue. And yeah, sometimes it's a volume issue. I'll botch the numbers probably, but you know, a client and I were talking about like, what's the math for cold outreach for like cold calling at one point. And, you know, it is a very, very tiny percentage of like, I don't know, I'll make something up. Let's say you do 1,000 cold calls and you get 5 clients or something, or maybe 1 client for 1,000 cold calls. Well, if you do 100, mathematically, you're not going to get a client. But that doesn't mean it's not working. It means you're just not doing enough of it. Okay. Third thing is there's often a skill component that we need to work on. So yeah, like I know I need to get clients from social media, but like, I don't know, it's just not working. Maybe you're just not good at it yet and you need to build a skill. Like, is that so bad? Not really. And then finally, and this is probably the least likely option, is that your strategy is wrong. Sometimes that's the case, but that really goes and sends us back up to number 3. Okay. So there you have it. How to solve any problem in life and business. You can plot yourself on this at any time. Make sure you have answers to all these questions and you can navigate it to get whatever you want. Okay. Those are the 4 problems. Great. So number 2, lesson 2, maintenance and growth tasks. So this is something that I also shared. I sat down and really like racked my brain to figure out like what are the 10 most important lessons that I can share with people for life and business. And I picked just a couple of them to share with you here. But I think that this is one that like, even though I've talked about it before, every time I remind people that this exists, they're like, oh, right, I should be doing that. Okay. So as an entrepreneur, there are basically only 2 types of tasks that you can do. There are maintenance tasks. And what I mean by that are maintenance tasks are tasks that keep your business running at the same level. So if you're making $100,000 a year right now and you want to keep making $100,000 a year, just keep doing the same stuff you're doing right now. It's really just that simple. Okay. Keep your schedule the same, keep your clients the same, keep your activities the same. And yeah, you'll probably stay pretty darn consistent. But if you want to grow your business, you need to do growth tasks. And these are the tasks that actually move the needle forward. And what I see when I work with people, and we do a little audit of their time, is most entrepreneurs think they're like, they will say, I am trying to grow my business. Okay. But when we do the audit and actually look at how their time is spent, most entrepreneurs on any given week are spending probably 90% of their time on maintenance tasks, which are just the things that keep things at the same level, and only 10% on growth tasks, which are the things that help the business grow. So let me give you some examples of maintenance tasks. So these are going to be things like keeping your current clients happy, posting on social media, answering emails, doing admins, right? Sending invoices, customer support, just all the things. Like if you looked at what you would need to do to keep the business running at the same level, you probably would be pretty clear on it. Okay. And then growth tasks are going to be the things that actually create growth in your business. And what I mean by growth is they increase the amount of money you're making, decrease the amount of time that you're working, and increase the amount of fulfillment that you get from the work that you're doing. So these are going to be things like strategy, building systems, automation, delegation, adding leverage into your business, increasing your prices, stuff like that. Ask yourself, which pile is getting most of your attention? And what you'll realize is where people get stuck. If you're doing growth well, the side effect of more growth tasks generally is that more maintenance tasks are going to pile up. So if you spend a couple weeks where you're in growth mode, what happens is you're going to wake up and be like, holy crap, all these maintenance tasks are multiplying like rabbits. And your job isn't to do them all. Your job as an entrepreneur is to address them. And the three ways that you can address them are: one, delete them completely. Maybe they're not necessary. Eliminate. Two, delegate. Okay. Find people that can take over those tasks for you so you can focus on the stuff that's moving the needle. And three, automate. Build and design systems. Okay. Talk about a lot of this stuff and how to work less. So I'm not going to get into it here. And at the end of the day, you only want to keep the maintenance tasks that are really aligned with your zone of genius. And I'm not going to define that and break down what zone of genius is. It's basically your point of highest leverage in the business. Okay. So if it's something that you hate doing, it's not in your zone of genius, even if you're skilled at it. Okay. So zone of genius is you love doing it and it creates a ton of results for the business. I guess I did define it. Okay. So ask yourself, over the last week, what percentage of time did I spend on maintenance tasks and what percentage of my time did I spend on growth tasks? Probably it's not the ideal ratio. So if you want to grow your business, do more growth tasks. Very simple, but most people don't do it. All right, the next lesson that I want to share is something that I've been really, really sensitive and paying a lot of attention to recently in my own business, which is the idea of managing your inputs. So as entrepreneurs, we love outputs. We love talking about them. We love talking about making money. We love talking about freeing up our time. We love talking about the results that we get, right? The amount of clients that we have, all of these outcomes that happen as a result of our work. But we should probably be paying a little bit more attention to our inputs. Now, I don't know how plugged in you are to the world of dining, but a world-class chef knows that their meal is only as good as their ingredients. So when you reach the highest echelons of cooking, Michelin star restaurants, the thing that you hear often is that they are nothing without the quality of their ingredients. And at a certain point, sourcing quality ingredients can become just as important as the recipes and the preparation. So at the end of the day, the best recipe in the world, if you cook it with rotten produce, is not going to taste good. Okay. And your business works the same way. As entrepreneurs, our bodies and our minds, the whole unit, are the engines of the journey. But if you're fueling these with low quality inputs, I don't think you're going to get the outputs that you want from it. So when I talk about inputs, what do I mean? The food that you eat, that's going to affect your energy. The content that you consume when you're, like scrolling the internet is going to shape your ideas. Like, are you getting high quality ideas that actually motivate you and challenge you and like stimulate new thought? The media you watch impacts your focus, right? There's a huge difference. The studies like are super clear. Like short form content, like TikTok and Instagram, impacts your focus. Okay. And what about the people around you? Like, who is in your life, and are they like lifting you up or bringing you down? The people around you influence your spirit, your friends, the people that you work with, like, your relationships, all that stuff, your family. Every one of these inputs impacts your creative output. And now more than ever, I think it's kind of like a cesspool out there. Doom scrolling, toxic relationships, the news, right? Processed foods, mindless short form content. It's like pretty bad out there. And I think our responsibility as entrepreneurs now more than ever is to be more sensitive to what we're letting in. Because if we don't have some awareness around that, the inputs they'll just flood in, right? They're designed to be addictive, basically. When you pick up your phone, like it's literally like a candy colored slot machine. When you go to the grocery store, you have the choice between like the food that's like healthy and on the outside of the store and the stuff that like makes your brain explode with, I don't know, chemicals like that's on the middle of the grocery store. So it's up to us, right, to take control of this. And I really believe that like business and entrepreneurship is alchemy, for lack of a better term, which is the idea of taking what's internal to us and bringing it and making it real in the world. But when the raw inputs suck, the stuff that you create is probably not going to be very good. just to like be really tactical, okay, like we'll just use food for an example. Let's say if you eat shitty food, you can get I don't know, 3 hours of deep work a day, hypothetically. And if you eat good food, you can get 5 hours of deep work done a day. Um, what does that look like when it's compounded over a month, a year, a decade? That's just one example, right? So most entrepreneurs would benefit from spending more time thinking about curating their inputs rather than trying to gather more information. And it's really just not about volume; it's about quality. Okay. Um, so at the end of the day, like entrepreneurship is about serving other people. Um, if you don't build something that serves other people, you're not going to make money, right? And it's really hard to serve other people when your mind is cluttered with a bunch of stuff that doesn't actually serve you. So, what I would encourage you to do is maybe sit with this, get clear on your inputs, and cut one thing that doesn't work. Should be pretty easy to figure out. Okay, so that's number 3. Lesson 4. So these 3 were all from my talk, my 10 lessons that'll serve you in life and business. Those are the 3 that like really I wanted to share here. There were more. Sorry if you missed it. We're going to get into some of the stuff that we covered with the speakers that I had. Okay, so I learned this from Stephen Lawson. Stephen Lawson and I actually have very similar trajectories in that we were both, I guess, for lack of a better term, productivity obsessed and or productivity influencer type people. Stephen built this incredible business called Monk Manual, which he still runs, and it's great. You can check him out, monkmanual.com. And similar to me, like I told the story at the event, when I picked up The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, which is still a great book. I have nothing bad to say about it. It blew my mind wide open. I was like, you mean you can like set up an email autoresponder and people will leave you alone? Like, you mean you can like hire people and you don't have to do everything yourself? Like, there's just a lot of stuff in there that like blew everything up. And like, you don't have to design your business the way that the 9 to 5 world does. So similar with Steven, right? He became obsessed with productivity in the 20s, thinking that it was a really high point of leverage. But the irony of this journey that he went on was Steven wanted productivity. And I think I see this for a lot of people. We chase productivity in our business as a means of creating control. And, why do we want control? Because we want peace. But the irony is that the approach of mindless productivity produces the opposite effect. So he was talking in the story. He said, like, at the end of the day, he'd be like, yeah, I like got a ton of stuff done, but I don't even know what I did. And just like constantly not really having clarity. And the lesson here is like the tools of productivity and time management are excellent for teaching you how to do things right, how to do things the most efficiently, but they don't get clear on which things are important. And this is a huge distinction. It's the distinction between efficiency and effectiveness. Okay, Peter Drucker said management is doing things right, leadership is doing the right things. And when you go down the productivity rabbit hole, it's really easy to optimize for efficiency instead of doing the right stuff. And the challenge here is the illusion of productivity systems is that they stop us from having to make hard choices. We feel like, oh, if I just dial in all of my systems, then I can do everything that I want to do. And we're like limited beings with infinite potential. Every day we wake up and there are an infinite number of things that we can do. But by the end of the day, we will have only done one at each time throughout the day. So using productivity as a crutch to try to avoid this tension and not really get clear on what's actually important to you, to not get clear on what you really, truly want, is where productivity fails us eventually. And the good news is there's a solution to that. We'll talk about that in a second. But I believe that it's really important to address the fundamental problem with productivity, which is that the principles are quite effective. But if they are not applied with intention and you're not clear on your outcomes, like I talked about with the 4 problems, it's not going to go very well. Okay. So the next thing that I want to share is a lesson that ties right into this. So 4, 5, and 6 are all part of the same general like idea. And the lesson here is around something that I see a lot of entrepreneurs do when they decide to set goals, right? So, a big part of this creating the connection between the internal world and the external world is like, well, we're going to try to set goals. We're going to try to set outcomes. But what I see is that entrepreneurs often set goals like, I want to make $1 million. It's the most obvious one, right? And secretly, what that means is once I hit $1 million, then I will finally let myself be happy. Or once I get to X number of goals, then I'll finally be fulfilled. And the goalposts just keep moving. You hit the goal and immediately you take that happiness bone and you chuck it and you say, actually, it was 2 million. Actually, it was 50,000 followers. Actually, it was this many clients, whatever it is for you. And the lesson for all of this is I'm not saying don't set goals. Okay. You should set goals. Humans are built to grow. Okay. But the secret is you need to learn how to find meaning in the process of what you're doing. So I think a skill that really serves us well as entrepreneurs, and then eventually there's this book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And one of these things that I believe is a what got you here won't get you there skill is the ability to delay gratification. It is a really powerful, useful skill that you need to have in your toolbox. But if you treat it like a hammer and hit everything with it, you're going to end up extremely, extremely unhappy because you're going to look back at your life and realize, wow, like I spent every day doing stuff that I didn't like so that I could get some outcome. And if you pick money as the goal, you are really going to be sad when you realize that that is not going to fix what you're looking for. Okay. So we need to find meaning in the process, in the day to day. And that doesn't mean don't do hard things. It doesn't mean don't grow and, create this business that has no friction. But it means find meaning in the process, not just the outcome. Entrepreneurs love to be able to just push through pain and grind it out. And society speaks to that. Like the whole 9 to 5 thing is like, living for the weekend. Like, oh my gosh, work is like 75% of your life. I think work can and should be challenging and should stretch us and should help us to grow and understand ourselves, but it should not crush us so that we get some outcome that we realize we don't even really want. And we did a bunch of stuff that we didn't enjoy to get there. Okay. So if you're not enjoying that day to day, you are literally warping your life. 90% of your life happens between these big milestones and goals that we set. So if you can optimize for this, and Stephen Lawson, I think, has a really powerful perspective on how to do this. You'll get a lot out of it. Okay. And paradoxically, what happens is when you're more invested in the process and less obsessed with the outcome, you get to the outcome faster. Spoiler alert. It's weird how that happens, isn't it? Okay. So really, really powerful kind of distinction here from Steven. And like none of the people I'm talking to, like Steven's a beast entrepreneur. Like this isn't some just like, some random guy. Okay. So it's worth paying attention to these distinctions. They can feel, especially when we get into the internal stuff, it can feel less tactical. And we think, oh, I need tactics, right? The thing that's missing is tactics. Well, you'll see what I think about that in a second. But it's worth paying attention to this. So 2 big questions that came up that I think would serve any entrepreneur well are, 1, Would this matter to you, whatever it is that you're doing, as you look back from your deathbed? So the goal that you're pursuing, is it a worthy goal? Is it something that you will feel proud of when you look back on your life? Okay. And then the second one is, what are you avoiding right now? What is the thing that you know you're supposed to be doing, but you're not currently doing? And a really powerful compass for how to grow is to focus on the work that scares you. Generally speaking, it's the hard conversation, right? It's the big decision you know you need to make. It's the risk that makes you vulnerable. But like Steven said, this is a direct quote: what scares you limits your freedom. And part of being an entrepreneur is like a path of creating freedom. So at the end of the day, success is always going to be an indirect return from who you are as a person. And the work that feels most scary, most vulnerable is the real work. And, at the core of productivity, I talked about this before, there's this desire for peace, but the way that we approach it produces the opposite effect. Okay. We become disconnected from ourselves, moving through life, but not experiencing it, saying, well, someday I'll have $1 million and then I'll be happy. And the path here and how you get out of this trap is to do a little bit of inquiry about what you really want out of life. And the only word that you need in order to get clear on this is why. We use $1 million as the example. Okay, my goal is I want to make $1 million. Well, why? Oh, I want security, freedom, and impact. Well, why do I want that stuff, right? And you can keep going deeper and deeper down. But at the end of the day, all of these external things that we create are either side effects or stand-ins for a way of being, a way of how we show up in our life, a way of how we feel. And I think the path that Steven has been approaching his business with recently is, instead of designing from the having goal, which is I want to have $1 million, he's starting with the being goal. Well, the reason that I want $1 million is because I want to feel secure, like I have a lot of freedom, and like I want to make a lot of impact on the world. And if you start with, how can I be someone that feels secure, that feels free, and makes a lot of impact, it gives us much better answers about how to spend our time. Okay? So I think that that is the lesson for all of this stuff, is have goals. Absolutely. Make $1 million. Absolutely. But if you start from, why do I want to make $1 million in design there, you'll actually get to the goal much faster than you realize. And I think that that is the real work that every entrepreneur needs to do. Okay. Number 7. So this was an interesting, there's such a funny tension between tactics, outcomes, the day-to-day stuff, and then the internal stuff, and how they all play off of each other and affect each other. And then from the other side of the coin, I spoke with Jamie Brindle, awesome entrepreneur, like killer freelancer, really smart, mentored a lot of freelancers and business owners. And in our conversation, one of the insights that emerged that I've talked about before, but I think bears repeating, is a pattern that I see in a lot of people, and it has its root in internal stuff, but it's very external in how it manifests. So we'll call this do the thing that works. And most entrepreneurs, like, you're probably watching this video, sitting there being like, all right, he's going to give me the magic formula, isn't he? He's going to tell me the one thing that I need to hear that's going to solve all of my problems. And guess what? There's no secret sauce, right? Hate to break it to you. You have access to the internet, and the internet has all of the information that you will ever need to do anything that you want to do in life, and connect you to any human that you want to connect with. So if you want to get an outcome, it's not some secret path. The answer is staring you right there in the face. Okay. I'm going to give it to you right now. 1, find what works. Okay, thumbs up. 2, do more of it. 3, stop doing what doesn't work. Well, why is this so hard to implement? Well, it's definitely not that you don't get it, because I'm pretty sure, a fifth grader can understand this concept. The reason why it's so hard is actually a result of the internal work. We are drowning in options, right? We're drowning in inputs. There are these endless levers that you can pull to the business. There's a new AI tool every week that you should be implementing. If you pull this thing up, you're going to be pulled in 100 different directions about what you should be doing right now. But if you can check in with yourself and with your business, you'll realize that there's actually some strong signals coming already. And this abundance of choices paralyzes us. We try everything instead of just finding the one thing, right? You'll see how all this stuff is connected. When we talked about the 4 problems earlier, okay, a lot of this stuff we were just talking about is getting clear on what you want, going from, a having goal to a being goal that's going to create the thing that you want to have, okay? I don't know what to do, okay? Well, figure out what works, The real path to success, number 1, figure out what the outcome is. Where's home? What's the clear goal? Okay, collect data on what works. It's not working. Well, are you doing it enough? Are you doing it at all? Are you growing in the skill of doing it? Okay, and then keep collecting data on that. And this is the most hilarious pattern that I see with business owners, entrepreneurs. I'm guilty of it too. When you find something that works, I see this happen all the time. You find something amazing. Like, let's say I don't know, post something on Instagram and it goes viral, right? People really, really resonate with it, and it feels powerful. It's really tempting to be like, oh, that was cool. I hope that happens again. Instead of being like, oh, wow, that's signal. That's really, really, really strong signal. I should probably double down on this. And the people that really go to the next level are the ones that spend the time collecting the data. When they get a hit, they double down on it and they focus their business and they align their business to what's creating the outcome. And the whole point is to collect data until you find your lever. And Jamie gave me a bunch of hilarious examples of this, but he's talking about all these freelancers who figure out a strategy that blows up their business. They're like, oh, this is a repeatable way to get clients every time. And they say, oh, I posted something online and I got 5 clients. And then they never do it again. He'll say like, how many more of these have you posted? Well, they haven't done that since the one, right? The secret is figure out what works and do more of it. The secret is there are no secrets. Once you figure out what works, Jamie said, drive it like you stole it. And that is the beauty of entrepreneurship. So continue to ask yourself, what is moving the needle? What is the thing that actually works? And do that. Okay. This is probably the biggest theme that I am interested in right now as I'm helping people to grow their business, design their business, make it the most fulfilling version of the business that gets the outcomes that they want and also serves the purpose that they have for their business. At the end of the day, I think entrepreneurship is probably one of the best vehicles for self-development that I can think of. Your business is going to surface all of your internal blocks, right? All the things that you need to work on, your business is going to mirror that, right? Fear of confrontation, avoidance patterns, self-doubt, issues with boundaries, right? These aren't distractions from your business. They literally are your business. And the cool thing, and what I'm going to talk about for the rest of this with the last 2 speakers that I brought in. So day 2, we talked a lot about the internal work. And I talked to Patrick McAndrew and Julian Wagman. And the cool thing is solving these internal blocks actually creates external results. So an example is you have an employee that is underperforming. They've been doing it for a while and you should fire them, but for some reason you haven't done it for 6 months. Okay. That's not a business problem. That's a personal problem. Okay. There is some issue that you have with confrontation. And as a result, we have this awesome external thing that shows us very screaming, red light, big arrow examples of the internal work that we need to work on, because like our businesses are reflections of ourselves when we're entrepreneurs. All the things that like we struggle with manifest themselves in the business. And what I see is most entrepreneurs hit these same walls repeatedly because they never address the internal work, and these patterns just loop over and over and over and over again. But what's crazy is the more you fix the internal work, the external stuff shifts. And what you see is you do the internal work, and then you start to observe yourself making the decisions and taking the actions that you were afraid to make before. And if this all sounds to you like, yeah, this dude is like office rocker, this is some hippie self-development stuff that like, just tell me how to make money. Like, I just want to know how to make money. I just want to know what to do. This is the work. This is literally good business. If you want to make more money, I strongly recommend looking into some internal stuff. Okay. And the cool thing is like, someone said this, all of the benefits that we get, all of the personal growth, all the self-development is this second form of compensation that comes from being an entrepreneur. It's a path for us to understand who we're meant to be and to work through these challenges that we have. And it's not just about making money. Yes, there's the compensation of creating value and getting rewarded for it, but there's also the second form of compensation, which is the self-development, which is pretty freaking cool. Harder to get when you're not an entrepreneur. All right, the last two are from two of my day two speakers. And I think if you stay with this stuff, with the idea that entrepreneurship is self-development, and probably a lot of the blocks that you have in terms of growing your business are actually a result of things that you got to work on internally, this is really going to unlock some stuff for you. Okay. So I want to talk a bit about your internal compass. And this was stuff that I learned from a talk that my really, really good friend Patrick McAndrew gave around reconnecting with the body. And if that already sounds to you like something that has nothing to do with business, you could not be any more wrong. Work in 2025, especially as an entrepreneur, knowledge worker, person who spends most of their time, like work is being on the computer, is basically about living a life up here in your brain. Like a lot of times you can really feel like a disembodied head, disembodied mind as you're engaging with your work, because it's all up here. And as a result, we tend to ignore a lot of sensations that our bodies are giving to us about useful pieces of information. And Patrick has worked with a lot of entrepreneurs and like strong entrepreneurs, 8-figure folks. And he saw this pattern that is happening over and over again, where these entrepreneurs are just disconnected from their bodies completely. And as a result, this disconnection means they can't get clear on what they want. They struggle to make decisions. They feel empty despite success. And they feel, like I said, like this floating disembodied brain. And the reason that this is the case is because they've lost the ability to feel their internal boundaries. Okay. And you probably know a little bit about external boundaries, which are like rules, right? But internal boundaries are different. They are actually sensations. They are things that we feel in our bodies. Our bodies are like giving us so much data every second. Okay, right? So an internal boundary might be like that tightening in your gut when something feels off, or that lightness you feel when an opportunity feels right, or that subtle yes or no feeling that's guiding your decisions, right? You can call it your conscience. Sometimes people call it that, your intuition, your gut feeling. But these days, we've been trained to override these signals. And Patrick basically described it this way. This is the pattern that happens. And like, tell me if this relates to you. You probably does. Okay. Step one is ignore the signals of your body. Ignore the subtle no's, the subtle like feelings of I'm overwhelmed, like this is like passing over my boundaries, stuff like that. And as a result, you overcommit to opportunities. Once you overcommit to it, you push through them to get it done, ignoring your body yet again. And then as a result, you feel super depleted, you feel super tired. And because you feel depleted, you have less awareness about how you feel. And it is this reactive loop that just repeats over and over and over and over again. Okay. And neuroscience like confirms this. The body reacts before the mind understands. Patrick recommended this book. It's called The Hour Between Dog and Wolf. It's by John Coates. And he was a former Wall Street trader. And this is a whole deep dive into the idea and the facts that our body is detecting things, patterns of risk and opportunity before our brains can even explain them and translate them. Our brains are actually coming up behind to clean up all the data and make a narrative out of it. And in this, John Coates analyzed all these Wall Street traders, and what he found was like the best traders were not the ones who were dialed in on logic and like, very cerebral. They found the best traders, the ones who had the best results, relied on their body's accumulated felt memory, right? This intuition, this body feeling to detect patterns of risk and opportunity before their minds could explain them. And ironically, the best performers were tapped into this, whereas the poor performers were the ones that were like focused on models, frameworks, data, theories, and just like shutting down their body and being all the way up here. Okay. And what happens is when you override these internal signals, you lose self-trust. So the client that felt off, but you took them anyway. The meeting that you didn't need to go to, but attended anyway because you felt like you had to. Every time you do this, you override your ability to trust yourself, and it actually becomes really detrimental, right? It plays out this loop over and over and over and over again. Okay. So I encourage you, Patrick McAndrew, he's awesome. You can look him up. Some of the things that he shared about how to do this, he actually guided us through an exercise, which I'm not going to explain. But the goal of the exercise to rebuild that internal compass and to get in touch is to strengthen your insula. And this is a part of your brain. If you go to Wikipedia or something, you can see where it is. And this is basically your brain's sensation hub that tracks your internal state and makes the connection between all of this data that's coming into our body constantly to meaning. Okay, so what Patrick recommends is having a practice to one, listen to the data that's coming in through your body and what it's telling you, and then start doing it in low stakes environments. Okay, so get clear on what you want. When you're asked somewhere to eat, state a preference. When you're invited somewhere, say yes or no clearly. Practice getting clear on like what's yours before deciding what's others. When a client invites you to a meeting and you're like, I really don't need to be here, but I feel like I should say yes, maybe like listen to your body a little bit. And what you'll find is these internal boundaries are the foundation of effective business decisions. And unlike these rules and external things that like we most commonly associate with boundaries, like I don't talk to that person, or, like I don't check my email before this time or whatever. These are internal boundaries, are felt sensations that help us figure out, okay, this is mine. These are my needs. This is what I want versus this is this person's needs and this is what they want. Okay. And if you can do this, guess what? You're going to make more money. Shocking, right? Okay. The last lesson that I want to share was from a really, really awesome talk that Julian Wagman did. Julian I struggle for words to describe what he does. I would say he's, what did I say here? Yeah, this is good. He's an inner work guide for entrepreneurs. So basically, when entrepreneurs are stuck, like really killer entrepreneurs, he helps them to uncover, I guess, the inner blockages and the things that are holding them back from getting to the next level. I think we all know someone, and maybe it's ourselves, that their biggest enemy is themselves. And it's clear that like they're the number one thing holding them back. And it's not that they don't have the strategies, it's not that they don't have the tactics. It's about this internal stuff that hasn't been addressed. And Julian hosted this session about how our responses to trauma, responses to emotions, secretly sabotage our business success and what to do about it. Okay. And you can think of your inner landscape as an iceberg. And basically, what people see above the surface and what happens in the world are our actions, the behaviors that take place. But there's actually this whole iceberg under the surface that creates the actions, right? It's all the things that actually turn into the actions that we take. And below the surface, there are thoughts and our beliefs about the world. There are our emotions, which actually drive decisions. People, you've heard probably, people buy with logic and they buy with emotion and then justify it with logic. We like feel emotions and act and then justify it with logic. And then at the bottom level is the body itself, right? Where trauma lives. And most people never go back this level. And as a result, we see that people, entrepreneurs, get stuck in patterns that don't really serve us. And there's a good reason for that. Most of these patterns that we do that are self-defeating, I talked about what got you here won't get you there. At some point, this pattern protected us. So maybe if you were like bullied as a kid, right? You learned to hide your fear. And now you can't share and feel and express your emotions because of this skill that you learned a whole long time ago. And then as a result, that's like really negatively impacting your business. Or maybe you learn to please others to stay safe, or, to like keep quiet and not raise your voice, right? Because of your family growing up, or maybe you learn that the signals that your body is giving you, like what we did with Patrick, can't be trusted. All these protective mechanisms become an operating system. And this is running below the surface, affecting all the actions that we do. The problem with that is they're running your business while you're sitting there figuring out why are things not working, right? Intellectually, up here, we know, and I told you, you should raise your prices. But below the surface, right, your emotions and your body responses, your body is screaming, danger, red alert, red alert, red alert, not safe, not safe. And as a result, you don't do it, or you do it half-heartedly without conviction, and then it doesn't work, and it creates this feedback loop over and over and over again. And our bodies are really smart. They're very good at protecting us, protecting our system. So if we don't address this stuff that's below the surface, stuff kind of comes out sideways and doesn't help. So same idea, setting boundaries with the client, your body freezes and you just let them walk all over you. One of the questions, I guess two questions that Julian shared that I think are a really good signpost to digging deeper into this. And these are questions that he works with his clients a lot to uncover these blocks, are one, what do I feel unworthy of? Okay. What would feel too good to be true? You might realize that like, if you sit with this and you sit in like meditation or journaling or something like that, you'll realize that like your body might be saying like, it's actually not safe to make a lot of money. It would be too good to work with only clients that really valued me. It would be too good to only work, 10 hours a week, right? These signals are where the growth is. But the real transformation is not, you're not going to get this, okay, by listening to me talk right now. This is not something that you just learn and you're like, great, Rich, thank you for the facts. I'm cured now. This is work that needs to be done, and it goes beyond just the intellect. You can't just understand your way out of trauma. You can't just think through these internal body things. The body actually needs to release and process this stuff. But when we're in denial about this, and I see this happen constantly, we will try everything external up here, new strategies. I need new tactics. I need more information. I need better systems. But it's actually all happening below the surface. Okay, so I'll give an example. This is one of my clients that worked with Julian, and they've been working together for years now. And this client initially was stuck in a lot of people-pleasing patterns. So like overworking 10 plus hour days, available 24/7, no boundaries with clients, constant stress, and getting to the root of it was some internal stuff when he was younger, about childhood punishment for expressing anger and, expressing his emotions. And as a result, the business reflected this trauma, right? Because he was not able to express his needs to his clients, he would just get walked all over and think that this is the only way to do it, and then justify it with, oh, but it's good business to do this, or, oh, all clients are like this, right? All of these stories that we tell ourselves so that we don't have to look at the reality of the situation. So after doing the work, they found new policies for clients, right? Only working with clients that respect his boundaries, moving to a new environment, feeling peace instead of constant stress. And the truth is uncomfortable, right? A lot of us are really in denial about what's holding us back. And we will do everything, strategy, tactic, hack, before looking at the painful truth, which is that there's inner work to be done for all of us. Okay? And I think our society is really just like catching up with this stuff. I'll tell you this. When you do the work, personally, I've been on this journey for a while myself, through my recovery journey. I've been doing therapy, internal family systems work, other like self work stuff. As you continue to address these deeper layers, the actions that felt so painful and like you were avoiding them and they felt terrible, they feel effortless. You don't need to force yourself or discipline yourself to set boundaries, to charge more money, to put yourself out there, because the inner conflict, right, the internal stuff is gone. And I think our culture is coming around to this, but a lot of times when you talk about this inner work stuff, people will be like, "Oh, that's so weird." Our culture is like, okay, it's totally normal to like watch Netflix for 2 hours every night. But if you said, hey, I spent 2 hours processing my emotions, people will be like, what's wrong with you? Right? Like Julian said this. And this collective denial about these things, like makes the whole society sick. Okay. So we're not going to solve this in me telling you about this right now, but at least maybe some awareness can open some doors where you have the opportunity, like an invitation to maybe do something about it. But sit with this question. What do I feel unworthy of? Just observe it. And just do it anyway. Only helps us so much. And it's only the internal work. So that's kind of it, folks. The one thing that I'll say, just summing up this entire event and what it was all about, is how intertwined all of the outcomes that we want are with our internal world and our internal state. And entrepreneurship is really about taking the internal and making it external. So you need to do both. It was a really amazing event. I got a ton out of it. I know my clients did too. Hopefully you enjoyed this little teaser. The last thing that I'll say is, if you want to work with me, if you want to show up to the next event, because we'll be doing another one of these soon, the only way that people work with me is through consulting right now. My clients call it a co-founder without the shares. I do this in 2 ways, in a group setting and one-on-one. If you are an entrepreneur that is having success, okay, so not just getting started, like you're already hit 6 figures, but you want to go to the next level. And if it seems like these are some of the things that you want to work on, I can help There's a link below with more information. If you want to just like work closely with me, that's how to do it. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you got a ton out of this, and I'll see you in the next one.